Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the New York SBDC's webinar series. I'm Kathy Fitzmaurice from the central office, and I'll be your host for today's webinar, How to Help Clients Find Commercial Space That Works for Their Business. Your microphones and telephones are currently muted to eliminate background noise during the program. We will take questions at the end of the presentation. So to ask a question, please type it into the question box on your control panel and I'll read it out loud. Today's program is being recorded and will be available through WebMQS in the Shared Resources section. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm pleased to introduce Kathy Teresi, Business Advisor from our Mid-Hudson SBDC. Welcome, Kathy.
Hello everyone and welcome. Thank you for joining us with the commercial space and finding adequate space for your clients. I'm a certified business advisor as well as a New York State licensed real estate broker, so I'm probably a little more versed and have exposure to this topic than your average business advisor. I'm just trying to help you provide the thought process that's necessary to help your clients make a good choice. And what is a good choice today may not always be a good choice, so we'll talk about what they should look for. So very important in the commercial space, in the brick and mortar world, it's said that there's three important decisions that you're going to be making, and they are all about location, location, location. So anytime you're talking about any real estate, basically setting yourself in the right location is something that's a necessary task in order to be successful. So as we continue, you're going to learn a little bit more about what location choices you should look into and the questions that you should ask. So sometimes when working with clients, what we have a tendency to do is concentrate on the business plan and perhaps not speaking to them about the location that probably is something that should be a top priority for them to look into. So the clients are busy working on their spectacular menus for their new restaurant or finding wholesalers for their first retail store, and the location is not the first thing on their minds, but technically that should be because having a primary location is going to be primary to their business being successful. A lot of work should be done, of course, in the planning stage when you're talking about location and when you're preparing to open a brick and mortar storefront. Of course, identifying the proper location is going to be one of the most important things they do, aside from having a great product for sale. Location can, though, and this is a warning, can backfire because today's hot, what they call a hot neighborhood, may be not so hot tomorrow. So sometimes you have to find a middle of the road and somewhere that could be desirable in time. It may be something that would benefit them more because first of all, the very hot locations or hot neighborhoods are going to have a high rent or price tag associated with them. So you want to make sure when preparing that you're thinking of what could happen. The most important thing that's going to drive that is the demographics of the area. So you have to do your due diligence, get a demographic overview of the area, and that's going to include age, income, and households. So when we're looking at that, you want to have your business in a target area for the demographic that you're trying to reach. Another important thing would be traffic generators, such as other retailers. Other retailers or businesses in the area are certainly significant to add to your foot traffic. If you're an industrial park or have an industrial park in the area, schools, colleges, and hospitals, they are all going to bring something to the table that's going to help generate more traffic into your storefront or business. The best of both worlds, of course, is going to be highway traffic as well as foot traffic. So you want to bring as many people into the area as you can to be able to support your business. The other thing that's a little bit odd if you're thinking about actually opening a business is to actually be near to a competitor. And the reason that this is important is because what you can do is take advantage of a competitor's marketing efforts. And what that means is that if there's a store having a big sale, or if there's a restaurant that's opening a coupon or having a coupon special, it may generate more business into that plaza or into that strip mall that will actually benefit your business because of the foot traffic and the people in the area. So actually being closer to your competitors is an important thing, and it's something that you should think about as being certainly beneficial. So competition is good. Being near your competition can be a boon to your business. It makes the retailer or restaurant better. It breeds more business, and of course it generates more traffic. Location cost is another thing that you want to think about, and you should be aware of all location costs. This will actually allow for you to identify some of the common startup mistakes by identifying the location, and if it's not properly planned, it could really be a disastrous startup. Build-outs and incidentals, they all add up. So although something is a great location, you have to look internally into the space to make sure that the space is going to work. Cost locations, there are a lot of things that we must take into account, and sometimes we don't keep up with that. Such things would be the attorney costs to draft or take a look at your lease and the terms that you're agreeing to. If you have a real estate broker, there are fees that are involved. Engineering, architectural fees, zoning fees, planning and hearings. There are many hidden fees that exist. So town permitting fees can add up with the cost of benefit or the cost of consultant reviews. So when you bring something before a planning board to say this is what I want to do with this space, the town actually or municipality actually has consultants that are on staff that actually review your plan, and they make sure it's in compliance with the zoning and regulations. Those consultants cost you money. The town doesn't pay for them. There are fees that are turned over to you, being the person or the applicant who's looking to actually develop that space. So there are planning hearings, and there are things that we don't always consider. And of course your client should always approach the town or municipality to make sure that the space that they found is something that's going to adequately fit the needs of the town by checking into their zoning code. So just because a landlord says, this is retail space and you can do X in this space, it may not be agreeable with the town because they may have certain plans for that area. So always you'd want to check with the costs that are involved with that type of planning. And some of those costs may be hidden, so they're hard to detect and to plan into your business plan. Location is more about than just, of course, about choosing a building. It's actually what part of town it is. For you, the business owner, time devoted to the business is 24/7. Do you really want to add on top of that the commute of an hour each way? Is the part of town consistent with the image that you want for the business? Does the rent vary greatly according to the location? So what you want to do is think about all of this, because it's something that although your client or you may feel there's an excellent location or a building choice, there's other things that you should consider. And of course when you're running your own business, as we all know, it's a 24/7 job, and you really want to add more hours to that. Location relative issues are streets. You know, is there off-street parking? Is it on-street parking? Are there other businesses? Do you need to be visible or accessible to pedestrian or automobile traffic? Being close to businesses that draw similar clientele can help your business or complement your business. So for example, if you're a health food store, you might do really well next to a gym. So you have to think about the neighboring businesses and how you're actually going to complement each other. Two pizza shops in the same location probably don't make sense, but if you have a pizza shop and perhaps a Chinese takeout, they may work well together in the same location. So you have to think about how this is going to play out in the long term. You know, what kind of space do you need? Are you looking just for office space? Are you looking for retail space? Do you just need a warehouse? Of course, when you're thinking of these spaces, the rent or leases that you're signing are going to be associated with what the space is going to be used for. So retail, of course, is generally the most expensive of these three. There's also things that you should question, or just clues in knowing what to ask. Is the space located in an area zoned for that type of business? Again, I come back to the point where you should always check with the town to make sure that that particular location is acceptable for that type of business. So there are specific clues or questions you should ask, and just knowing what to ask is important. And first of all, just because a retail space is available, it's good for your purposes now, but is the space large enough for you? Does it offer the room for all the retail, office storage, and workroom space that you're going to need now? And does it have the ability to be able to allow you to expand in the future? You know, all of those things are really important. You just don't want something for today. You have to think of what's going to happen if the business really takes off, and are you going to have the space that you need? Does it meet your layout requirements? Is there going to be a lot of build-out? Because, of course, anytime you talk about build-out, change in construction, adding different components to the building, you're going to have to realize that that's going to cost money. First of all, there's those hidden fees that we talked about where it must be permitted. You have to go to the town. You have to get a C of O. So you have to make sure that the layout that's currently there is something that can be modestly modified, and it will work for your long-term needs. So if it's a modest build out or change in the plan of the way the layout is currently, that may work. But if it's something that's a major build out where you're knocking down walls and changing doors around, those things all need approval. Does the building need any repairs? Is the lighting good? Cooling and heating is a big deal, and who's responsible for that? Do you need to do rewiring or plumbing? You know, is the ventilation adequate? So because the space is perfect and the location is perfect, sometimes you have to look internally as well to make sure that that's all affordable in your budget. And when leasing, you have to know who's going to be paying for these upgrades. So a lot of times what will happen is the landlord will have this beautiful space, and you go in and you say, yes, this will really work for me, but I have to put a wall here, I need to change the ventilation system, or I need to upgrade the ventilation system, and the landlord's going to look at you, well, you can do what you need to do, however, it needs to be approved by me, number one, and the cost is going to be either built into the lease or you're going to pay it out of your pocket up front. So all of those things are things that you should talk about when you're talking about the terms of your lease. So getting to lease, are the terms favorable for you? There are many different types of leases when you're talking about commercial space. So when we talk about favorable rent or favorable lease terms, what we're talking about, is it a gross lease? And a gross lease means that if the space is, say it's 1,000 square feet, and the landlord wants $2,000 a month, and they tell you it's a gross lease. That means that all the expenses are included in that $2,000. So there's nothing above and beyond that except for, of course, the utilities that you use. If it's a net lease, that means there are some other options that are going to be built in, meaning that you're going to sign and pay a net amount of, say, $1,000. On top of that, you are going to pay a portion, or what's going to be based upon your square footage proportionally. You're going to pay a portion of the insurance on the building, as well as taxes on the building, and as well as maintenance on the building. And the maintenance would be if there is shared space, say, for example, snow removal. That's very common, especially in the Northeast, as we know. So that's going to be a part that's going to be added on. So there'll be maintenance fees as well that are going to be added to the lease terms. So that's certainly things that you have to make sure that's built into your lease, and knowing also after the year is identified, so say it's a year, 2 years, 3 years, or 5 years, however you build in the term, and of course you usually see escalation, so meaning that year 1 it may just want to get you in the door and it may be a lower rent. Coming to year 2 you may have an increase in your rent, and that's all built into the lease. In addition to that, you should have renewable options with terms as well, where you identify, if this is successful in 5 years, you want another 5-year lease, and these are the terms that you're agreeable to. So it's always a good idea to lock yourself into that. That is a double-edged sword, because realizing that once you agree to terms of a lease, that if things don't work out for that space or location, that not only your business is obligated or liable, but also you personally guarantee the lease as well. So unless the landlord agrees to the good guy terms, which means that if you give him so much notice that he will let you out of the lease, that you would be stuck paying for that full term of the lease, and you have personally guaranteed it. So that's something that's going to be required of you. So finding the space, negotiating those lease terms, and making sure it's something that's affordable for you and the business is certainly pertinent and actually something that's going to make or break the business. The other thing that you should think about, especially if you're in a manufacturing mode, is you want to think about, do you have the qualified professionals that you need in order to run that particular business from that location. So for example, if you're drafting things or you're actually building out products and you need an engineer or somebody who's going to be a draftsman or specialist of that nature, is there somebody qualified, or are there employee bases in the area so you can actually have the staff that you need in order to move forward to be successful? And the other thing that's really important in this area, of course, is it a seasonal business? And if it is, what happens in the off-season? So the spot may be excellent if you have a lakefront property and your business is booming through the summer and the fall, but what happens in the winter and the spring? So you have to think about what happens in the off-season. The boom may happen in the summer or in the winter, but what happens when the seasons change? And if your trade is heavily dependent upon seasonal business, how are you going to make that particular location interesting and be able to survive through the rest of the seasons? So is it going to be because you do have such a phenomenal business that what is going to happen that will carry you through the rest of the year? But that's really what you want to work on, is how you're going to make that business survive for the entire year. And what are you going to do to change things off when seasons change? Perhaps you can change your product, perhaps you can bring in, a different line of product that's going to make it a little bit more interesting. But usually when it's involving the season, the area where you're involved with tourism, that's usually something that you must think about in your long-term plan. Because from season to season, you can have a booming business in the summer, but what happens in the winter? So you want to think about that as well. The other thing is about with the space that you choose, does it have the image that you'd like to maintain? Is the area, the design of the building, is it something that you find appealing, or does it have a storefront with a facade that's broken down and it doesn't really attract the clients that you need or customers you need? In some areas you may get a very reasonable rent, but you should look at where the space is located. Is it in a safe neighborhood with a low crime rate? Do your customers or clients have to worry about going out after dark? Does it have adequate lighting and parking? And is it something that's going to be safe for you to operate your business? So it's not just for clients coming in and out. What happens, in the off hours? So you have to make sure that it's in a neighborhood where, of course, clients and customers feel safe coming to. Is exterior lighting adequate to attract evening shoppers and make them feel safe? So remember, we have daylight savings times here in the Northeast, and in the winter, it's dark at 4 p.m. So if you're looking at the space in the summer, when it's dark out, and when it doesn't get dark till 9 p.m., what's going to happen in the winter months when you're still trying to maintain and run your business when it's dark at 4 o'clock? Is it still going to be something that's going to work for your clients? Are you going to have the adequate lighting that's necessary in order to have shoppers come in and feel safe? So these are things that you must look at. So it's seasonal because based upon what's happening here in the Northeast, you have to make sure that it's going to be a space that's going to be accommodated for the year-round. Are your neighboring businesses going to attract customers that will also patronize your business? So sometimes, as we talked about before, business will complement each other and add foot traffic to your business. So you want to make sure that, if it's a plaza or a strip mall where there's several shops in there, you want to make sure that you're all accommodating each other. You don't want to put two pizza shops next to each other or adjacent to another store that's going to conflict, because it's just going to cause some problems and not create a very long-term relationship. So you want to have neighboring business that complement you and help patronize your business as well. So the other thing is that when you're going in and you're looking for competitors that are going to be close to you, you want to make sure that you can compete with them successfully. So it's nice to be able to look your competitor in the eye, but in doing so, you want to make sure that that is an area that is going to work for you as well. So you don't want to have somebody who has a superior product right next to you and put you out of business. You want to make sure that the customers are going to be able to shop or shop conveniently with both shops being located in close proximity. Is the space accessible to your potential customers? So do you have curb cuts that allow for people that are perhaps using devices to help them walk, whether it be a wheelchair or a walker or canes? Does it have curb access that allows for them to get to your space? And is that important to you? And of course, that's something for most retailers that's going to be by law, that's required by most municipalities. But in an older space, you may find there's some difficulties in getting around. So you want to make sure you're in compliance with that and make sure the space is accessible to all your potential customers. You don't want to leave anyone out. So it's important that that is something that you look for as well. And the other thing that's important is parking. Is plenty of space available, and is the parking adequate? You don't want to have people parking in tow-away zones, and in this season, especially when there's snow removal, you want to make sure that there's still parking in the lot when there's big mounds of snow that are around. So you want to make sure that you can accommodate all your customers. If it's street parking and they have metered parking, that may be a deterrent for business. But if it's something that has off-street parking with a parking lot, that's usually more accommodating to people that can pull in. But if in the winter, if you're looking at it again in the summer when everything is green and there's lots of space, think about it in the winter when there's big mounds of snow. Is it something that doesn't make difficult ingress or egress where people are coming and going, the exits and entrances? You want to make sure even when it snows that that's something that could work for you. So you want to make sure that parking is available and adequate. And is the area served by public transportation? Sometimes this is a big factor, especially if you're in an area that has the service of public transportation. Is it something that there's a stop near or close to the shop, where the location where you're thinking about putting the business? Can suppliers make deliveries conveniently at this location? So again, if there's off-street parking, that's normally not a problem. But if it's street parking, then you want to think about where are your deliveries going to be made. Do you have a backdoor entrance? Is that something that could work? The other thing is you want to think about garbage and the garbage trucks coming in and out. How are they going to get to that particular dumpster area? So suppliers, that's going to be essential for your business to be successful. And if they can't get access to your location, or if they block the street parking so your customer clients can't come in, that's not going to work too well. So you want to make sure that suppliers have a route that's been identified, and it makes it easy for the customers as well as the delivery men to be able to get your supplies to you. If your business wanted to expand it in the future, where are you going to grow to? So what's really nice is if you're looking at a strip mall location and there's storefronts, sometimes they have panels that actually separate them, and you can grow from one space to the other. So if you have a smaller space to start with and your landlord's willing to accommodate that, and then if in the future, if you need double the space, perhaps he can accommodate that as well. So you want to make sure that if you need to, you can accommodate future growth. And that's something that your client should think about, because if your business expands, which you want that to happen if they're successful, of course, so you want to make sure that there's area that you can grow to. You don't want to have to move across town once you've established a business. The biggest part is to get your foot traffic, getting clients used to coming to that area of town and knowing where you're located. If you move your business across town, chances are you will lose some clients and gain some, of course, but you want to build on the client base that you currently have. So again, looking for future space accommodations with the landlord is something that you should be aware of, because your plan is really for success. There's no one-size-fits-all strategy for any commercial space, and it really is just what works for you in your business. So it's a matter of finding the space that's going to work. It's a matter of actually looking at the demographics, building a good relationship with your landlord, and not having a miserable situation going on where the landlord and you are constantly at edge. You want to make sure that the terms that you agree to are terms that are actually going to be something you can comply with, because that's the one thing that landlords get angry about, is that if you do make a commitment to a lease and then you can't comply with the terms of that lease, it becomes a miserable situation and it can cost your clients lots of money. So basically, it's all about what works for your client and their business, and of course suits your business needs. Any questions?
If anyone has any questions, just type them into the question pane. I don't see any coming in, Kathy.
Okay. Well, certainly if you have any questions, you can contact me here at SBDC, here at the Mid-Hudson Center, and I'd always be happy to help you with any specific questions that you have with regard to your client's commercial space and real estate. As I can address any questions that you may have, I'd be happy to help.
Thank you very much, Kathy, and thank you, everybody, for joining us. And I hope, we have something. We have a comment. Excellent points were highlighted today. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, everybody. I hope you have a great day.
And thank you.
Thanks again, Kathy. Bye.
Take care.